The Last Supper, the story behind the Bible. Introduction. Throughout the centuries, the Last Supper has been one of the most talked about scenes in the Bible. More than just a farewell meal, it is an event filled with deep meaning, mystery, and human emotion. Let's go back in time and consider what might have happened in those hours of anticipation and betrayal. Jerusalem on the eve of Passover. Jerusalem evening is full of life and bustle. The street is filled with the sounds of people selling, the smell of freshly baked bread, and the aroma of herbs. Everyone is preparing to celebrate Passover, the most important event in Jewish tradition. But in the heart of one small home with burning candles, something unusual is happening. The disciples have gathered in the house where Jesus planned to hold the feast. They are excited and full of anticipation. Each of them has looked forward to this evening in a different way. For Peter, it was an opportunity to show his devotion. For John, a chance to be closer to the Master. And for Judas, a time to think about the future. A gathering of disciples. There were already trays of bread, wine, and fruit on the table. Each of the disciples, entering the house, was waiting for the evening to begin. As soon as they sat down at the table, Jesus, as always, quietly observing, began the conversation. He spoke about the meaning of the upcoming holiday, about how their grandfathers once left Egypt in search of freedom. "This is the time to remember that we have been set free," he said, and the disciples listened attentively, realizing that something important was happening in their lives too. At the same time, the pressure was growing. Each of them was preparing for the fact that everything was about to change. Discussion and questions. As the conversation progressed, the disciples began to ask questions about what was going to happen. "Master, what should we do after this evening?" Peter asked. He always felt like a protector and was looking for an answer that would help others. Jesus shook his head with a slight smile. "You will do what you want. You are my disciples, and you will have the opportunity to convey all this with the light of your love." Judas intervened in the conversation, seemingly lost in his thoughts. He could not forget his plans, and deep down he felt that he was building a bridge to the dark places. "Master, what if we just leave things as they are? Perhaps we should live on instead of following the hard way." Jesus looked at him with understanding and said, "The true way is not always easy, Judas, but it is in the struggle that we find freedom and light." The ritual of washing the feet. Before serving the dishes, Jesus stood up to wash the feet of his disciples. It was a wonderful and touching act that left no one indifferent. "But, Master, we are the ones who should serve you," Peter exclaimed, refusing to let Jesus do this. "Unless I wash your feet, you have no part with me," Jesus answered peacefully. This moment became a true symbol of humility and service that will forever remain in the minds and hearts of the disciples. Each of them felt the inner conflict between pride and humility heating up. Secret betrayal. After washing, Jesus sat down at the table again. He immersed himself in prayer and reflection, and the disciples, feeling the tension, looked at him with anticipation. At one point, Jesus said, "Truly, truly, I say to you, one of you will betray me." The room filled with persistent whispers and bewilderment. "Is it really me?" voices rang out. They realized that there was a traitor among them, and hatred, condemnation, fear pierced their hearts. Judas felt his heart pounding in his chest. He himself did not know what to say. "Judas, what are you doing?" "Do it quickly," Jesus said in a striking moment, his words ringing like a sentence. Judas realized at that moment that he had entered an unknown path, and he froze in fear of condemnation. Secret symbolism. Jesus stood up again, took the bread, broke it, and spoke words that would change the history of mankind. "This is my body, which is given for you." He gave each of them a piece. Each of the disciples, taking the bread, was already aware of its symbolic weight. Then he raised the cup of wine and said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you." Each word sounded like thunder, filling the place with sacred respect and appreciation. Discussing the mission. After they realized the meaning of this gesture, they began to discuss what it meant to be a follower of Jesus. "Master, what should we do after you go?" Andrew asked, full of doubt. Jesus replied, "Go and preach, heal the sick, help those in need. Do not be afraid, for I am with you." These words inspired the disciples. They understood that the responsibility for the future of people now rested on them. Prayer in Gethsemane. After supper, Jesus arose and led his disciples to the Garden of Gethsemane. He sensed the disaster approaching him. There was pain in his heart, and he begged his disciples to remain with him while he prayed. "The hour of my coming is so near," he said. Jesus looked into his soul, calling on the strength from above to prepare for the coming suffering. He prayed to calm his fear and find strength in God. The disciples, tired from their experiences, fell asleep. Jesus, left alone, experienced deep moments of silence. He realized that trials, betrayal, and suffering awaited him. Conclusion. As soon as the night came to an end and their paths diverged, they understood that this evening had become not just a farewell dinner, but the most important event in their lives and in the history of all mankind. The Last Supper left an indelible mark on their hearts. It was an eternal sign of love, sacrifice, and hope. Millions of believers through the centuries will remember this evening, understanding that true strength lies in love and unity, despite betrayal and suffering. This story will live on through the centuries, inspiring compassion, service, and mutual assistance. Glory to you, teacher. Glory to your love.